do hip circles and shimmies. So the shimmy move is that lovely, fast, flickering hallmark move of the belly dance art form. So it's wonderful to be practicing and sharing that. So what we're going to do is start by softening our knees and just checking into posture as we always do. So feet hip width apart, just tucking the pelvis forward, engaging the abdominal muscles, lifting up the chest, allowing the shoulders to feel relaxed, and a sense of looseness in the jaw is really important as well with the shimmy. So if the jaw is clamped or tight, the shimmies will reflect that. So you might want to practice that during the session, is just how much ease is created as you relax the jaw and how that translates into the relaxation of the hips too. So let's give a lovely smile to relax the jaw. Have the tongue feeling loose on the top of the mouth. And we're just going to breathe in and open up the side of the body. And as we breathe out, we take it to the side. So we breathe in and we breathe out. Just starting to open up as we breathe in and stretch down on the out breath. That's good. We're just going to take some little step points which we've already looked at in one of our other classes. So this is good for just generally increasing the blood flow and getting the heart rate going before we do any exercise. So it's a step, touch, and you can make it quite bouncy as we've practiced. Or you can keep it nice and controlled. Step, touch, step, touch, step, touch, step, touch. And let's move those round in a circle. See if you can get quarters. Just warming up the body there. So the hips are starting to move as we accent very softly to begin with on that hip lift. Good. And we'll carry on that move. Put 2 feet flat and we'll just take it round. As we breathe in, we'll do 4 to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the other way, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 and 2, and then slowly bring that round. Have a nice little soft hip circle. Paddling the feet off the floor one at a time. And relax. Relax the shoulders. Good. Breathe in. Look over the shoulder. Breathe in. Look over the shoulder. Swap sides. I'm going to come forward. Stretching out. And if you want, you can take a little dip down and slowly uncurl. Counter stretching there. Gently pushing the hips and the pelvis forward, supporting the lower back in a little counter stretch. Coming back to neutral, shaking out to the front, shaking out to the sides, shaking out behind you, and repeat. Good. Okay. So for our shimmy, we've done this move as part of the warm-up. The feet are stationary, so when we looked at the triple step, obviously we were picking up the feet and moving this. Okay, for this shimmy that I'm going to teach you to begin with, the flat-footed shimmy, check the pelvis is tucked forwards, chest is up, and we're just paddling those knees forward and back. And I want you to just connect into the jaw, give it a little massage around the points of connection between the upper and the lower jaw. And just to create a sense of deeper relaxation into this move. Let's try taking it down, only a little way, otherwise the tendency can be for the bottom to stick out. And we want to keep our postural alignment when we're doing this. So that's normal. And then we go down, but we keep the bottom tucked in, and up we come. So just building some strength into our thighs, because they really do start to feel it in the shimmies. Good sense of connection into the feet. And we're just going to speed that up. So as we speed it up, and I find going down and going up is a really good way of combating any tension that can occur in this basic shimmy. So when we're practicing it, we tend to do it for longer as we're drilling it. So in an actual dance, for example, it'd be quite rare that you'd be just doing this on the spot, for more than, a few seconds, really. Especially in the fast drum solos, you'd be adding variation, you'd be moving it through the space and getting all the accents expressed through the body. So relax, shake it out. So I hope you're starting to feel this sense of freedom, this small shake into the hips, or shimmy into the hips, flat-footed, stationary, up and down. Lovely little thing to just pop into a drum solo in itself. Shimmy up, shimmy down. Or even shimmy down, shimmy up. Shimmy down, shimmy up. Yeah? We can add to this flat-footed shimmy by having a little jump, perhaps. So we've started to work the knees and the thighs. We're checking in that we're not sending the pelvis back, the bottom back, keeping a nice straight back. Okay, so we're shimmying up and down. You might want to add a little jump in there. So we're shimmying and we jump, shimmy and 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 jump, and shimmy and jump, shimmy, jump. So it's a really fun way of accessing the changes that you might hear to the drum beat and the rhythm. I love the jump. So we're just going to go through a few shimmies, a couple more shimmies, and also look at the shoulders and how they can get involved in the shimmy expression. So up we go onto our toes. So quite similar to some of the work we did with the triple step, where we practiced the flat-footed version and the version up on the toes, the balls of the feet. So as we did with the first move, flat-footed shimmy, this is on toes. Obviously we're keeping it still, and this one feels to me a little softer, but we're challenging our body a bit more because we're on our toes. So it might just be a quick up shimmy that happens in your dance, a quick up shimmy, a little quick shimmy onto the toes. Very dependent on what you're hearing, okay? So this up on the toes version, as I say, it can be kept on the spot, and the more you practice going onto your toes, the more balanced you're going to feel there. But you can also patter the feet up and down, yeah? So let's just point the toes forward one after the other, pointing them, pointing them. So not just a step touch now, we're actually doing more of a stretch into the toes, because I'm going to get you to patter your feet for what I call a tiptoe shimmy. So we're drawing back the toes to the shins, warming up the lower legs and making the ankles that little bit stronger. You can take a moment to rotate the ankle, and if you want to take that deeper, you can just draw the knee up to the belly and rotate it there. I love this because we're getting lots of different stretches and balancing exercise in one go. Foot can work, the ankle, the supporting leg, and all the hip is getting a lovely squeeze and stretch too. Taking that back, maybe just stepping it back and counter stretching there. And shaking it out. On the other side. So anyone that comes to my classes will be familiar with this sort of dipping in and out of exercises that warm up the body parts that we're about to use. And also mid-session, we'll just take a moment sometimes to stretch out the lower back, or the shoulders, depending on what we've been doing. Hopefully you've given yourself 20 minutes or half an hour to do this little class, and you can just relax into some of these moves. Good, so your legs should feel a little bit more warmed up, and the feet. So we're just going to take that time to go up onto the toes. Remind ourselves of that shimmy we just did, where we're shimmying on our toes, but the toes are plugged down into the floor. There's no stepping. But what we're going to do now is that pitter-patter of the balls of the feet on the floor. So this should start to send a sort of shimmy, soft shimmy through the whole body. And obviously, if you're wearing a hip belt, that hip belt is going to start to glitter, shine, as the sequins and the beads catch the light and express the movement that's coming up from the floor all the way through the thighs into the hips. So the tiptoe shimmy really gets the heart rate going, okay? So again, it wouldn't be something that would be constant, it would be in relation to the music. So I'd like you to practice the tiptoe shimmy and think about what we've just done with our up and down, up and down, up and down. And you can just keep the movement in the feet. The faster you go, the harder the shimmy, or the more vibrancy is going on in the hips. And you can keep it like that, or you can start to think about that movement coming more into the hips. So there's a up and down with the hips, and a pitter-patter on the feet. Again, listening into the music to see what works. So, another way of finding a shimmy, I'm going to teach you one that's less energetic now, is to move the weight one side and the other. So just get into that feeling, weight transfer. And you can do a single shimmy on one side. So again, we're using the knee to softly paddle back in a flutter. Shimmy. And adding emphasis to that move by looking with our gaze and using the hand to frame the shimmy. Okay, so that's just a couple. So you can almost do this as a step point. So for example, stepping to the side, step, shimmy, step, shimmy, step, shimmy, step, shimmy. And you can take it wherever you want to go, keeping in mind that the feet will guide the direction, always of where you're going and looking into the space that you're moving into. Step, shimmy, step, shimmy. So the shimmy can come from the knees, the feet, or it can just come from a kind of sense of tension and release. Tension and release. So not so much moving the knee back all the time. Might do it to get that first propel of movement, that first push, that first spring. Then I just let it kind of vibrate. So rather than stopping an accent or letting it just see its course naturally, I kind of control it to a certain extent to make the most out of it. It's coming up anyway. Okay? Some more subtle shimmies, and you'll find that in a drum solo, for example, the shimmies aren't always fierce and fast. They're soft and subtle, and if you can find those little nuances, brilliant. Makes you feel more connected to the song, the dance, and rhythm. Good. So we've looked at how we can move through space with our jumping shimmy, which is a flat-footed shimmy, and it jumps through the space. It jumps through the space. We've looked at our simple levels, up and down, and we've looked at our tiptoe shimmies, which again can go up and down, up and down, up and down. And that tiptoe shimmy can also travel, so the hips aren't doing much. So if you want to just head somewhere, a soft little flutter, you can. Or you can bring in some accenting with the hips whilst shimmying. And that's when it gets really interesting. So I started to show you the example there of the sliding hips. Yeah. And we can add a shimmy to that. So we shimmy to the side, and the side, and the side. Shimmy to the side, shimmy to the side, and the side, and the side. And then we can take that up on the tiptoe shimmy, and we can take it there. And often when you get the tiptoe shimmy, we almost feel like we've got a little bit more space to move into because we're not stuck on the floor. The feet are actually moving through the space. You could bring in a figure of 8. It's always lovely. And that's the shape we're making on the floor with the feet, and the hips are following suit as we go round with that lovely, dramatic, flowing tiptoe shimmy. Phew. Take a break. So, there is also something that I introduced some time ago called the Egyptian walk, or sometimes it's called the shimmy walk. So I thought I'd introduce some of the ways that I teach that, because when it's done quickly, it's very much like a shimmy, okay? But it's beyond the flat feet and the tiptoe shimmy. It's an actual stepping motion, yeah? Okay, so with that one, you want to step the weight as in a hip drop, but you've got a flat foot. Okay, so just think heavy foot, transfer the weight. Prepare, heavy, transfer the weight. When I say heavy, it's because it's the down drop, which has normally got that sense of being much more weighty and earthy compared to the lift. Okay, so once you've got that, and it's very much about practice and getting both sides to be equal, drop, flick, prepare, drop, flick, prepare, dum, tack, tack. Obviously, I'm just breaking it down, so don't worry so much about rhythms right now. Now, I sometimes describe this as 2 L's, capital L's, so big L, back to back, big L. So you've got the strong line, and then you've got the horizontal line, yeah? You've got the vertical line and the horizontal line. So when you're coming up for the first preparation, almost for the whole thing, you're coming up the centre line of that L, and then you're going down, so I call this bolding the L, and then you flick to the side. And then I'm coming up the other vertical plane of the L, I'm dropping down, and I'm flicking to the side. So this centre line is getting a really good pasting of ink, if we're going to talk about bold. Yeah, it's getting the up, the down, the flick. Sorry, it's just getting the up, the down, and then the flick is singular. Up, the down, and the flick is singular. So our bolding, our heavy, our highlighting is on this midsection, which is what makes this such a hallmark move of belly dance, because everything, well not everything, but so much is coming into the centre of the belly. So you might want to try practicing that. Up, prepare, but don't go too high. It's just a small preparation. Down with a flat foot, flick. Up, prepare, down with a flat foot, flick. Up, prepare, down, flick. Da-da-dum, 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 da-da-dum. also done with a little squeeze. So the hips are twisting forward as we walk. But I don't want you to worry too much about that. But it's just to offer that as an example, how you can build into this and get a really traditional looking, sometimes called a Hagala walk or an Egyptian walk. Or some people just call it a shimmy walk. So on the subject of twisting, I want you to get the feet about hip width apart so you can check in, see if you've got that position there. Just check the posture's aligned. And the twisting can also be a shimmy. Okay? So we've gone through a few different shimmies, and this is the final hip shimmy I'm going to teach you. Always trying to keep the hands still, and if the hands are kind of all over the place, bring them in. Imagine they're leaning on a table, or you're holding a tray of very precious glass. Okay? So with this twist, we can take it to the side. So often stepping out, and then it's just nice to highlight one side, for example. Checking in with the heel, checking the heel's not going crazy. So here we're really starting to work on our isolation, yeah? You've got to try and keep the hands under control. You've got to try and keep that heel under control. Yes, it can start to move, but it doesn't really create that lovely compact style of movement, that isolation of movement. When everything else is working, it's just about control. So we can go through this lovely grounded center point position and then twist. Twisting shimmy, twisting shimmy. Okay, so now we come to the shoulder shimmy, and this is a lovely move to do if you want to add a little surprise into the dance. You might have done a lot of hip work and hip shimmies, so just to bring expression through the shoulders also connects you into the heart. So I learned this also as a heart flutter. So we're literally sharing our love or our heart energy. So we're either giving it out or possibly receiving. So you might want to think about that when you're doing a dance, that it's not just about the technique, it's about where we're coming from in terms of our body part and what energy that feels to us and what energy it might feel to others. So visualizing that release of heart energy. So we might want to just give some love or receive some love. So with the shoulder shimmy, the shoulders are just moving forward and back. It actually feels quite clunky when you sort of break it down like that, but it's just that forward and back move, not a move that we do that often in daily life. So it's good to practice and get evenness on both sides. So once you've practiced that and maybe opened up the shoulders a little and the neck by doing some stretches that work for that move, have a go at speeding it up, okay? You might want to keep the arms quite low so that it asks less of your body. And you're just going to go with that forward-backward motion, and then you're going to speed it up. Speed it up. Again, very unlikely that you'd be doing this for a long time. It's normally just a really quick expression in a dance. And then there's also the up and down. So this is a cute one. up and down, so not so forward and back like we've done, very different. We're going on the vertical plane, up and down, up and down. Adds a nice little variation into the movements. So the shoulder shimmy as a softer way of bringing in the translation of some kind of, maybe the quanoon or a drum that's doing a fast percussive move. Great. Remember too, we've got our hands and our fingers and our wrists that we can also use to express the shimmy. So this is really good fun, perhaps if you just shimmy the fingers, shimmy the fingers. So it could be that you're expressing a song about the stars, for example, coming down, and the romance of the night coming down. Could be through the lyrics, or just something you have in your mind as you work through a dance. Could be the rays of the sun coming all around you. So you might want to do that as a wrist shimmy. Or the rain coming down onto the desert floor. So a really dramatic wrist shimmy. So shaking out the fingers, shaking out the wrists, and working that also into your dance to find shimmies in new ways. It's not just the shoulders and the hips. We're maybe reaching out and shimmying an energy into our heart area, or we're offering a little shimmy with our hands. Maybe simultaneously as the hips as well. So shimmying the hips and shimmying the fingers, shimmying the hips and shimmying the fingers. Just a little added extra. So thank you for joining me for Shimmies. I hope you've learned a few tips and tricks and you enjoy practicing these. Let's just take a moment to stretch out. We're going to go like a star here. And we're just going to go wide, as wide as you can. Just going to be a star. Opening the chest, opening the legs, looking up so the chest is lifted, and then we're just going to hinge forward so everything starts to come down. Feeling all of that lovely work you've done, and just allow yourself to hang here. And then bring the feet back together. Slowly coming up. Opening up the body, breathing in. And we're going to stretch and stretch. Stretch one side. Feel a lovely release on the opposite side. We're going to take this one and we're going to go over with this now. So we've done a lot of reaching back. This time we're going to go over with it. Hands to the belly, breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. Good. You're going to take a prayer hands. And you're just going to step back And we're going to go into this stretch again. Go down. It's good for the hip flexors and the solar plexus and the psoas muscles. And yeah, if you're lifting up there and you've got a good posture, the solar plexus is nice and open as well. And change. You don't want to change hand position. You can make it a little harder by bringing the hands above. You can have them nice and easy, rested on the hips. So we've really seen throughout this belly dance course how the knees are so important. And you need to develop some flexibility and some strength, obviously in all the joints, but how the knees are so vital to how the hips work. So thank you for joining me today. Enjoy your shimmy practice. So let's look at how we can warm up for our hip circle. First of all, we want to start to feel a sense of relaxation. It's a very smooth move, and it is a relaxing move, so you'll feel more relaxed afterwards. We'll feel the hips about hip width apart, and we're just going to soften the knees. Tuck the pelvis forward, lift up the chest slightly, and a sense of lift in the head and the temple, and a relaxed jaw is really important for anything where we're using the hips. We're going to breathe in, feel a lovely sense of increasing the space in our chest and our lungs, and then we breathe out, and again breathing in. And this time, as we breathe out, we're just going to gently twist to the right. And the other side. And we breathe out. So let's build this. We breathe in. And we twist both ways. Twisting both ways. Form a little table position with the arms, keeping those knees soft still and the pelvis tucked forward. We're just again having a little soft turn each way, opening up the whole spine, breathing in, circling the arm and watching it as we go. Circling the arm, breathing in and out, breathing in and out. So we'll go back to that first move, breathing in, twisting, and then this time we're going to come halfway, and then we're going to let it go all the way down, sweeping down to the floor, and up we come. So I learnt this as a move called Round the World. Coming down and coming up. Try it both ways. So breathe in, reach, turn to the side and let it come down. And you can spend some time here if you like, just letting the body relax, feel free, and then up you come. Let's try it all the way round, down, and up. So if you've got any blood pressure problems, don't let the head drop below the heart level. So you'd want to adapt that just to maybe come halfway and then up. Halfway and then up. So listening into your body. This is an easing into belly dance course. So we want to just do what feels right. Let the arm come down the thigh. And the arm come down the thigh. And then we're going to feel into the hips by softly paddling the knees forward and back. We're just going to point the toes and bring them back to centre. Activating the thighs, the feet, the ankles, and getting that lovely sense of being grounded that we've been practicing throughout this course in the last session of the step touch. This is a pointing exercise. To stretch out the toes. And then take that classical foot position as a step touch position. Make sure your posture is aligned. Breathe in. Form a little pose. And we're just going to rotate softly into that hip joint both ways. And just do what feels right for you. It's exploring that space to begin with. Exploring the space. And change. Rotate. Feel any areas that need a little bit more awareness. Any areas that might feel that they need you to move smaller. Or any areas that want you to really go bigger and deeper into that rotation. Try forward and back and just listening into your body to see what works. And the more you practice these moves, the easier they will become and the smoother they will feel for you. So let's carry on. Let's just do some hip slides. Love this one. So we've looked at our weight transfer where we had that really big body sway right at the beginning of the course. Yeah. For now, we're just going to slow that down and feel the weight transfer. But it's coming from the hips. Slide, 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 slide. Gently, 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 gently. Good. And let's just see if we can step a half circle. So you don't necessarily need to think about something really dramatic and big with a circle. You're making something curvaceous is the main thing. Something that's rounded and will work with a lot of the soft movements. And gentle music. So we want to complete this circle so that the spine isn't just coming forward. So let's have a look now at the weight transfer situation with the hip circle. So we're going to go to the right and then we're going to come forward and the weight is going to be on the balls of the feet. The ankles are still connected but there's more pressure. Sorry, the backs of the feet are still connected to the floor but there's more pressure into the balls of the feet. And then we go to the left. Okay, and then we're going to bring the upper body down and the weight should feel like it's driving down into the heels here. Okay? So this is something that you can really mark out as a 4-step exercise. And the more you do it, the more you'll find you can go wider and deeper. Remembering to breathe all the way through these exercises, energizing your body, oxygen, to help your muscles work. You should start to feel a sense of opposition happening here. So, for example, if I'm going to the right, my upper body is to the left. And if I go forward, my upper body's back. So there's an opposition. Forward with the with the lower body, back with the upper body. To the side, and the opposition is occurring there. And then as I go back with the hips, the upper body comes forward. So there's a lovely sense of almost like a double circle happening in this move. And when this happens quickly, sometimes called an Egyptian dip, it just looks really, really exciting and dramatic to watch. So always try it both ways. Side, forward, side, back. You should start to feel the inner thighs start to wake up here. So if we just take a moment to tip the pelvis forward, go quite low, breathing in and breathing out. Feel that sense of opening and the strength in the thighs. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And you can open these thighs up a little bit more, literally, by using the lower arms or the elbows, just to tease open the legs a little bit to create more stretch. And then slowly bringing the feet back together and shaking them out. So there's our breakdown of an Egyptian dip. So I sometimes use this as a warm-up just to really activate the body, open up the big joints, get a sense of expansion. And once you get going with it, it can become quite fluid. And you can have the arms just quite floppy in a warm-up. If you're thinking about preparing it more for a dance, you might want to think about where the energy is going in relation to the hips, and also looking at where the hips are traveling to and changing your gaze in accordance to that. So that's quite a nice tip. Okay. So that's a large hip circle, and it opens everything up for this session wonderfully. I think the hip circle might be one of my favourite moves, but it's hard to choose, obviously. So we've got the idea of the hip slide there, and we've taken it wide by firstly stepping wide. Yeah. We can play with this. So we could just take it halfway and have a little moment there where the hip is maybe coming forward, saying hello. You often see that in a belly dance. So take that to the other side. It's a little bit like a DJ or is scratching his record. Woo! And we come out of it. So we don't always have to complete the circle. Practice doing perhaps a half circle on the spot, but you've still got those principles, and obviously you can do that without going into the full dip, which we'll practice, but you've got that idea of the weight going on one side, and that really being your power with this move. Flat foot, pressing the weight down and guiding the hips with real intention here, and committing to the whole of the circle. Look at all of that space that we can move through. And then playing with it. Playing with the circle, playing with quarters perhaps, or halves, or 3/4. Yeah? But just listening into the back and the spine, and you're going at your level. Okay? Let's look at just feeling and imagining a circle within the pelvic and the hip area. So you could imagine that you've got a little pencil, paintbrush, that you're creating a shape with the hips. And remember the exercise that we did with the knees, where we came forward and we got the claws and we rotated the weight around the feet, simultaneously massaging the knees. This is a great one too for hip circles, small hip circles, because we've got this small movement around the feet. Small movement of a circle around the feet, and I'm already doing a hip circle because my body is creating that shape, but I want to get some more definition in there. So I'm going to connect my brain to my belly, and I'm going to add a little bit more emphasis to where the hips are going, a bit more awareness. I'm thinking about the weight being on the heels as I go back, on the right foot as I go to the right, on the balls of the feet as I come forward, and on the left as I go to the left. Yeah? So you can just experiment with this flat-footed circle. You could start to step it round perhaps. That one's not as easy as it looks, but it's great for toning up the abdomen. Shake it out, relax the jaw. Do some nice wrist circles, just to connect to our theme of the class. So circles that can come in all parts of our body. So we might just think about a circle with our arms, a half circle with our arms. Obviously a spin will create a circle. Pivot spin there. So connect and then push, 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 push on the other ball of the foot. Connect, push, 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 push. A circle. So don't limit yourself to just working with the hips. Create these shapes everywhere in your choreographies. It's lovely to have a theme. So you can have these in the sky, you can have the half circles coming round with the arms and the hips following suit. Half circles. Okay? So we've looked at a smaller hip circle there, where we were very much coming from our feet, which is where I always teach the beginnings of belly dance from. We can also use the knees. So remember this paddling of the knees backwards and forwards that we've had in, gosh, so many of our classes. Shimmies, triple steps as well, and our hip lift. So this is fantastic. So don't feel that because we keep doing these exercises there's not anything else to explore with them though. So with this one you can really experiment with pressing the hip down and then shortening the waist on the other side. Pressing the hip down, shortening the waist on the other side. And breathing through it. So breathing whilst we're working, you'll need to breathe more deeply and more strongly when we're working these big muscles, your thighs and your buttocks, calves are all working here. So breathe it, feel it, work it. Okay, relax. Open up the hips on both sides. Before we go into our little paddling hip circle, so feet about hip width apart, and as we paddle here, basically feeling the weight going onto one side and then the other. So we're not going there in a dramatic fashion, but we've got that sense of where the weight is. So all that work that we've done there, feeling the hips sliding to the right and the left, we can still keep that there. In a more fluid and connected way, because the knees are going forward and backwards too. So we're not just stepping it through with our feet, we're really using the knees to propel more momentum into the circle. And as I'm doing, we can also move this through space. Relax. Breathe in. Look up and come forward. You might feel a little bit freer now. And coming up, shake it out, counter stretch, push the pelvis forward and look up. Good. So, pelvic floor is quite important with anything that we're doing, such as figure of eights or hip circles as well. So if we strengthen up the pelvic floor, it gives us a lot of options in terms of controlling that move and really rooting our belly dance into that sacral area and the pelvic region. So just for a moment, practice some gentle pelvic floor exercises. We'll go for the main perineum area rather than behind. It'll naturally come in, everything's connected, but I just want you to connect to the vaginal area and feel how that connects into our abdominal muscles. release fully, engage, release fully. Engage the pelvic floor, 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 release fully. So try to isolate it to that perineum, that vaginal area. Try to isolate it, but also try to feel how it's so connected into the abdominal muscles, and that sense of connection and control that we can bring in then to our belly dance. It's kind of like a hidden power, okay? So, for example, if I was to do a hip circle where I'm holding on to my pelvic floor, there's a sense of containment, restriction, deep power and strength, slowness. And then if I let go of that pelvic floor completely, there is a feeling of literally release, but that also translates into a quick rhythm change within the hips. And you can do it also in your figure of 8. So let's get our figure of 8 going. So building on what we've done, looking at weight transfer, looking at sweeping the hips forward and backwards in that teardrop shape on both sides. Now I'd like you to connect into your pelvic floor muscles without pulling a strange face. Ideally just smile, but I have explained the relationship between the jaw and the hips, and it's just one of those stories that gets passed down from belly dancer to belly dancer, really, that if you're dancing with a clamped jaw, it's going to translate into the hips as tension or restriction. And sometimes we want that, so I'm still hanging on to that pelvic floor. And then when I want to just create more fluidity and more movement, I'm going to let that go. I naturally want to sink down because there's a release. But it feels different. It feels different internally. It possibly looks different externally as well. Okay, so we've looked at some very strong hip circles. We've looked at how we connect into the pelvic floor to help our ability to create different feelings and different strengths, different levels of resistance, different levels of flow. And that would be useful in accordance to the music, yeah? So is there something that really makes you want to dance with extreme control and deep awareness? Is it an emotion in the lyric? And then what happens when that is left behind and you release the pelvic floor? Experiment. We've looked at how we can just connect into our feet to create the circular motion and some exercises to get to that. And then we've looked at how we can bring in the knees to paddle our hip circle around. And how we've then moved it through the space. Good. The final one I'd like to teach you with hip circles is the travelling one-sided hip circle. Okay? So we've looked at our hip circle being something that happens as a whole circle. The Egyptian dip goes all the way round in a circle. We've broken it down, yeah, into quarters and had a play with it, but it was still the whole circle that we were working on, one circle. What I'd like you to think about is circles on one side of the hip, yeah? Keeping the idea of the flat foot. I love the flat foot because it is so grounding for us. The more we can connect into the flat foot, the more we can press down and feel our hips able to work more deeply and more strongly. So you can also do it on a ball of the foot, but for now, for ease, let's just look at taking one side into a double hip circle. And I sort of find 1.5 is good here, so that we're not ending up with a backward emphasis. So we go 1 full circle and 1/2, change. 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 Just experiment. You can do it really putting your weight there. So in theory, I could take that foot off the floor. Yeah? My weight is there. That's just support. 1 full circle and 1/2, change. Take it on a diagonal and change. 1 full circle and 1/2, change. 1 full circle and 1/2, change. 1 full circle and 1/2, change. 1 full circle and 1/2. So really starting to get into some juicy, sort of almost spiral-like movements. And that's what I'd like you to think about really, is that the hip circle isn't just the one circle. You know, even the figure of eights, a lot of people will see this as 2 circles joined as within one movement. Yeah. We've also got the idea of the spiral, and I love that. Sometimes just digging deep down into that kind of corkscrew motion, micro circles, deep down, really using that flat foot and strong thighs to propel that movement, and just experiment. So let's just think about how we could put, say, 5 of these hip circles together that we've looked at today. We could come in with a little pivot spin. My weight is on the right, so my stepping foot would then be on the left. I'll do a 1.5 hip circle, and then going to step out to the right because my weight is on the left. And I'm going to do a full Egyptian dip, coming back up with a figure of 8. I'm going to make a beautiful circle in the sky, and then my weight's to the left. I'm just going to slide and slide, little bit of a jump there, and slide, connect the feet, and I'm going to go a half circle and a half circle. Okay, so we've explored that quite well today. Thank you for joining me for these belly dance sessions. I hope you've enjoyed them and you've picked up some tips and tricks. Remember, it's always really important to warm down. So let's just spend, to cool down. So let's just spend a couple of minutes doing some nice relaxing moves. Shoulders, and as we did at the beginning, feeding that arm down and opening up the chest. Feel how that really extends down into the waist and around the hips. Coming forward now with a wide leg. Let's just take it halfway, stretching the arms forward. Going into that lovely open-legged position. Bring the arms down and breathing in to come up and down and up and down. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Good. Just point your toes in. So normal position would be for the feet to be like this or perhaps out slightly. I want you to bring them in just a little bit, and then we're going to come forward and do that again. What this does is it just stretches out the side of your feet and your legs in a really beautiful new way, just with that simple adjustment to the angle of the feet. So if you can't feel it much, just try bringing them in that little bit more. Go into that lovely stretch. Good. And then angle them out again. Breathing in and breathing out. Bringing the feet back together, shaking them off, and I want you to create these little floppy wrists and a little soft fist, and we're just going to use that motion to pummel gently around the shoulders and the chest. Feel how good that is, and you can use the elbow to lift the elbow to help navigate into the little spaces that you might find hard to reach. So you're virtually able to, with that movement, give yourself a whole body massage and a little pummel either side of the spine. Thighs, very important. Backs of the legs, just give them that lovely, take the time just to give them that lovely pummel. Beautiful gift to yourself to help activate your day or just release any tension from your muscles. They just flop, especially that calf muscle just flops. So lovely when you give it that gentle pummel, you know, and this wouldn't really happen unless we did that. So these little interventions are great. If you've got a coin hip belt on, don't pummel, but if you've got soft clothes on, just gently pummel into the buttocks as well to create that benefit. Belly, we won't be pummeling. It's too soft. There's no bones there. Instead, we're going to give it a little bit of love, and we're going to thank our belly and our centre for bringing us to this place of practice and creativity. Let's breathe in. Feel the belly expand, and as we breathe out, feel it contract. And that beautiful rhythm, the deeper we breathe, is there for you every single moment to connect into the breath. Perhaps breathing deeply so you create a little whistling or wind-like noise, the back of the throat, the ujjayi breath of yoga. Stimulating the vagus nerve is our magic key into greater relaxation. So you might want to close your eyes. Gently release the hands, but bring them up. Feel the warmth that you've created there on the belly, the warmth that you've given to yourself, the warmth that your body has given to you, this beautiful cycle of energy that dance, belly dance, will always activate all that warmth, all that energy, and then just stroke it over your face, over your body, and feel more connected to yourself as you go through your day. Happy dancing.